Hey guys, want to welcome you again to the Three Circle Podcast. We call this Beyond the Weekend because that is what we do. We go beyond the weekend, dive a little deeper into the teaching, and we get to hear a little bit about the great stories that people bring to the table. And man, do they ever bring great stories. We are talking to different staff members over the past few months, and what we're finding out is that everyone indeed has a story. And today is going to be no different. We are going to dive into the finale of the Achilles Heel series that we've been in for the past 4 weeks, but we have a special guest on the podcast today. I've known this incredible lady for a long time. In fact, when I came here to Three Circle as the pastor 11 years ago, she was a young person, a part of the ministry here, and she was also a singer and a vocalist and a worship leader. But over the years, she has just exponentially grown in her gifts and her maturity, and I got to have a front row seat to that. She married an incredible young man, Dylan, and they took what we call the Alaskan adventure. We'll hear a little bit about that as he was in the military serving our nation, and they moved to Alaska, and then by God's grace, and we were so happy they got to come back to our area. Moriah is now on staff with us, and she's an incredible part of our worship team, Three Circle Music, and so many other things that she does here. So we're really excited to have on the podcast today. She's a wife. She's a mother. She is an incredible part of this ministry, all around talented person, Moriah Ray. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, you're one of those we've been wanting to have on here for some time. And so it's really, really good to have you here. Moriah, a lot of people, in particular we have a lot of campuses, but you're in particular at the Fairhope campus. Yeah. People see you so often on stage. You have an amazing voice, and you're not just a vocalist. You're also a lead, like a worship leader. You really know how to lead us to Jesus and to his glory week after week. But most of the campuses have been exposed to your worship leadership as well. You've certainly been around at the campuses. So it's really great to have you here today. And of course, you are married to another one of our staff members, Dylan, who is amazing. Got to get him on here at some point because he kind of runs all of our facilities management, which has become a really big deal. And he has served our country faithfully as well. And so we just are big fans, Moriah, of you and your husband. Okay, so we got you on the podcast today, and the first thing we need to do is kind of dive into the weekend. Yep. And so we've been in this Achilles Heel series, and you're a big part of the creative planning around here. You're in on those meetings, and we knew for about 6 months we were going to spend the beginning of the school year, if you will, when everybody came back to school. We were going to dive into these vulnerabilities that we saw that Peter in his epistle warned us about. He's like, watch out. The enemy's coming for you. He's looking for your weak spots. Yeah. And we did the mind, and we did identity, and we did our misuse of time. But this weekend, we talked about entitlement. So, Moriah, would you help us do what we call going beyond the weekend? When you heard the teaching this weekend on entitlement, and when you think about that, what does it mean for you, and how have you avoided it in your own life?
Gosh, I think all of these have been so heavy-hitting in so many different ways. But for entitlement, I think this one in particular stood out to me as being one that is a sneakier one for me personally, like where I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, I struggle with entitlement. Like, oh, yeah, I think about other people. I don't think about myself all the time. But when I was really convicted listening both to yours and Pastor Russell's teaching this past weekend, just thinking about how often I do say, like, oh, I had a hard day. I deserve X, Y, and Z. Yes. It's kind of like that treat yourself culture I feel like that we live in. And I definitely do that. Like, and so it's just the small things. I think, and that's the whole point with this Achilles Heel series, right, is it is the small things that will get you. So a lot of times they're not these prominent, outstanding things that are a part of your personality. They're just the sneaky ones. It's the sneaky ones. This one was very sneaky for me because I did go into it thinking, I don't think anyone
wants to admit they're entitled, right? But I think we all do. That's why we chose these, because the Bible keeps bringing them up. And I think it means
Yeah.
that because you and I would have unique Achilles heels, right? There's some things you
Sure.
probably struggle with that I don't. And I bet there's a lot I struggle with that you don't. We are unique. But there are these things that I bet most of us have in common. The Bible keeps bringing them up. And this idea of entitlement, this idea of how we view the world around us, pretty big deal.
Well, and it's just the viewpoint that things come back to being about me.
Oh, that's good.
Like that. And even when I don't think they do, because I'm like, what I'm doing is for other people. What I'm doing is, even in ministry for God,
Right.
still, it's very easy for that to get twisted and back to, actually, that motive maybe underlying was a little bit for me. Or, so I think it can be very sneaky and very tricky.
It can be. One thing I think we all have in common, we say it around here a lot, is that you like you some you, and I like me some me. And none of us want to admit that, but at the end of the day, we are these creatures that we tend to think all the roads are leading back to us. And I've heard it said that it's kind of like we are all the star in the movie, and everyone else is the supporting cast. If we're not careful.
Oh yeah.
And we all go there. And so you are, not only are you a worship leader here, but you're also, hey, you're a married woman. And tell me how entitlement can be just a killer in a marriage if you're not careful.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think entitlement in general, if you're not thinking about your spouse, in your family unit, if you're not thinking about your kids and putting your kids and your spouse first, then it very quickly goes downhill because your spouse doesn't feel, and I'm going to be honest, I struggle with this too, but your spouse just doesn't feel like you care, I think. I think that comes across that way. Entitlement can come across very narcissistic because it is about me. And so I think any relationship, but marriage especially, can be torn apart very quickly. I think it's a very quick thing when you're focused on you.
Yeah, marriage, I'm sure you have found. How long have you guys been married?
10 years this
All right.
year.
Wow, congratulations. Has it been that long?
We were young.
I've been around here a long time. Have you found, I have certainly, have you found marriage to be a bit of a microscope, if you will, for these types of things that, it'll show up in a lot of areas, but man, it shows up at the home in marriage.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, because a lot of times your spouse gets what's left of you, especially once you're a parent too. When you're working and you're a parent and you're doing all these things.
You guys have young kids. How old are your kids?
They are 7 and 3.
And
one on the way.
I mean, I wasn't going to say it, but,
So one
what's
on
the
the
term
way,
I
so
use for you sometimes?
You said great with child.
Great with
I think
child,
is what you've been
which
saying.
is a very King James biblical way of saying it. And thank you for not getting mad at me.
No.
Because I didn't mean it anyway, Moriah.
No,
None at all. It was totally complimentary. But you've learned that having a family, man, and I can't even imagine, because I watched my wife is and was an amazing mom. Our kids are a little older now, but when they were little, man, I watched the energy drain for her, and it's just constant. And I could, I would go to work or I would go, and at the time she was at home teaching piano, but also taking care of these little babies that needed her every second. Talk to us today, because there's a lot of moms probably right now listening to this going, they see you on stage and they think, wow, she's just got it all together. Look at her up there singing. And could we have a little bit of honesty right now? How does, as great as being a mom is, how does it kind of pull at you, and how do you get through that?
Oh, yeah. I definitely don't have it all together, so we'll clear that up. We'll clear it up right now.
Let's get that on the record.
Let's get that on the table, on the record. I'll start with the second half of the question.
Okay.
For me, the easiest way to get through the day it's truly one day at a time. It's waking up. It's spending time in the Word, however brief, because it can be very difficult to get time when your kids wake up at 5:30.
You mean your kids don't respect your quiet time?
My kids want to stay up late. They get up early. They don't like to nap long. It can be hard to find those times to spend with God. So getting up, prayer, time in the Word, however brief, making sure that I have it. And really my prayer every day is just show me what I need to get through today and to be what I need to my kids today, what I need to Dylan, my husband today, what I need for my job today. Because I tend to be anxious. I struggle with anxiety, a worrier. I can get very wrapped up in next week, next month, next year,
Gotcha.
and trying to plan and control a little bit, what is going to happen in our life. And so for me, that has been the best way to release control
Okay.
and to actually have some peace.
One day at
And
a time. That's it's a biblical concept, in Lamentations, it says that God's mercies are new every morning. Every morning we're going to wake up to a new kind of, I heard John Piper talk about this once, kind of like a bank account of God's grace that the battery recharges overnight. And we have this new set of basically grace energy that's waiting on us. Have you found, because I think this is something that's going to be very helpful for the listeners today, Moriah, how have you found that to settle down some of the anxiety maybe, and to maybe re-energize you to go, hey, I am going to focus on today. I know tomorrow's coming, but right now, this is what I can carry, this load, this bucket of water today.
I think it just opens up and gives so much freedom in the trust. Like, mentally, I'm aware that I don't control much, but it still can be hard in each moment to feel like I need to control this and I need to take care of this. And if I don't worry about this, for tomorrow or next week, it won't get done. But for me, it really does give freedom to wake up with that mindset that I'm just going to tackle today and that God's going to help me tackle today. And, one thing back to, I think, a question you asked just a minute ago, and just how do I get through the day? I think it's important. You actually talked about this in the teaching this weekend about having humility and gratitude just in your life.
Yeah.
For me, a big turning point was realizing that those things are not feelings always, but they're choices.
Ooh, that's good.
Because I do think my tendency is to lean into well, I just don't feel it, and so it's not there. But making a choice to actively be humble, but in this case, especially grateful for the things I have in the day.
Yeah, that's great. I've heard it said that, I'm probably going to butcher this quote, but I love it. The idea that you can act your way into feelings.
Yes.
And I don't always feel it. There's many things I don't feel in the moment, and I'm an emotional person. We all are emotional, but because you and I are both creatives, and we're songwriters, we do all this kind of stuff, and there's a little emotional vibiness that comes with that, right? The artistic side. And we kind of just feel stuff, but man, we can use that as a crutch to go, I'm just not feeling it, so I'm just not going to do it. And so I've heard it said that we can go ahead and do what we know we need to do and act our way into a feeling, but often it's harder to feel your way into actions.
Yep.
Have you found that to be true?
Oh, yeah. I don't feel my way into many actions. I feel my way into being like a couch potato, binging Netflix.
Yeah. Your feelings can lead you to the wrong place.
Feelings a lot of times lead me to
My feelings have led me to a bag of Doritos many times.
Yes.
And Doritos are so delicious, aren't they?
They really are.
And I'll tell you, the best way to chase a bag of Doritos is with a pint of Bluebell ice cream, just about any flavor. It's just amazing. I love that you said that you don't normally, your feelings often don't lead to the right place. Okay, so Moriah, we've gone into the weekend a little bit, and this series has been a lot of fun. Let's talk about your story a little bit. A lot of people, again, are familiar with your voice, your worship leadership, and I've watched you, at least over my decade plus of watching you grow as a person. For one thing, you've grown in what I would call the craft of being a vocalist. Talk to us a little bit about your journey of just being a musician. You're a songwriter, this craft. And I know you do see it as that this is this thing that God's put in your hand, this gift, but you didn't just sit back. You worked at it. You've done, I know you've told us you've done a lot of vocal training. What has your journey been like to sharpen the gift that God gave you?
Well, I started singing at a really young age, children's choir in church, having little solos here and there. It was always a part of my life that I knew that I loved. And when I got to college, I did some professional voice, mostly classical music.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to multiple places. I went to Faulkner, that's now Coastal.
Yeah.
I went to University of South Alabama, and then I
Okay.
went to University of Alaska, Fairbanks,
That's
because
right.
we moved to Alaska before I had graduated. So
I
I
forgot
had
that
many
was part of the
different.
journey.
It was part of the journey.
How was the school in Alaska?
It was good.
Yeah.
Much more liberal
Sure.
than schools in our area.
That's understandable.
Um,
Did you do vocal
and
training
I did not
there?
do vocal training
You
there.
did not?
No,
I
at that
gotcha.
point I had fully moved. I actually have a major in psychology.
Really?
hmm
That's fantastic.
And a minor in music vocal performance.
Got it.
So I did all of that in my early years, though.
Okay. So you come back from Alaska,
hmm
and I think you came on staff before Dylan did. Is that right? Is that how that worked?
Yes. So I came on staff here as small groups coordinator before I came on as anything else. My job has changed every year.
We've had a lot
But
of
I've
people
been
wear
here.
that small
We
group
have.
hat. Pastor Russell runs that. He's our discipleship and spiritual development guy, and he grabs very talented people quickly and says, "Hey, help me do this." Okay, but all along you kind of knew that your passion was
I
singing
did.
and music.
But I think I never fully felt equipped or like I'm reminded often that God equips the called. And what is that? There's that quote
I
that
love
God
that.
equips the called, but he doesn't call the equipped necessarily. Is
Yeah, that's
basically
so
the
true.
gist. Now
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
butchering a quote.
No, but I
Um,
thought, the point is well said though, that often people think I can't do that, and God will often call you before you can do that. That's
mhm.
part of the journey. And so what you're saying is the Moriah we see stepping on a stage right now is not the same Moriah that came back from Alaska, just from a toolbox perspective.
No, and I mean I led worship almost every week at our church in Alaska, like just in a volunteer role. And truly, when we moved back here, I thought that would be what I continued to do. Like I knew that I had a gift and that I wanted to serve. So we served at the Midtown campus when we lived in Mobile for a while. Would also drive over here and serve some too. I loved being at multiple campuses.
I
Like that's
forgot
always
that you
been
were
fun.
at Midtown for a while.
Yeah, we were
What a
like
great campus.
10 minutes from that campus,
Yeah.
lived there for 2 years. So it was fun being able to be involved there. Um, but really, most of my training has been personal growth that I have like researched myself. I only just recently started taking voice lessons again, which was
Wow.
intimidating. And also, it's been really good, like to
Humbling.
freshen up on humbling. Yes.
Yeah.
It's been really good to freshen up on things again. But back to not feeling equipped, especially being here where you have so many talented people.
Mhm.
Most people have a degree in worship leadership or in some kind of,
Sure.
biblical theology background.
Right.
And so for me, I personally never even considered myself as this role being an option because it was like, I don't
You
have
didn't feel
the
like you
training.
were. Yeah, I got you.
I'll sing and I'll lead and it'll be great. And
God had a
never
different
thought
plan,
it would
though.
be this role. Yes. And I think that's important for people to know that God's plan is more important than and takes precedence over what you feel like you can do yourself because
So
God
good.
is the one that equips you to do those things.
Man, I love that. Not only that, though, you have tremendous work ethic, and you took it very seriously. You're like,
Mhm.
okay, I see God opening these doors for me, and you obviously have natural gifting, and so you went after it. And we've
Mhm.
watched you do that. Even now, you're trying to continue to learn, trying to continue to sharpen your voice, your gift, and all that. And not to get too technical, but
Mhm.
just there's a lot to just singing, right? Just
Oh, yeah.
becoming a better singer and where to place your voice. And I have a vocal background in college, and
Mhm.
I remember working with these guys and gals that would come in and work with us, and it's amazing just how much goes into the way you hit a note, and all the way down to singing on the breath and being able to
Mhm.
blend with other vocalists. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Well, and for me, it's been lots of critical review from myself.
Yeah.
So
So do you go back and listen to
I
yourself?
review everything every week.
Really?
Like, okay, this
Funny
one
enough,
thing
I
I
listen to
don't
my
like.
sermons every week now.
Do you?
Yeah, because I learned, in college that repetition doesn't grow you unless it's evaluated repetition.
Mhm.
Because repetition alone will just deepen bad habits.
Oh, yeah.
I learned that as a singer, learned it as an athlete, in high school, and now as a communicator. And so I do one of the most brutal things I do every week, and maybe you feel the same way, is
it's
watching
torture
myself preach a
sometimes.
sermon. Yeah.
Yes.
Because you see things that other people probably don't, but you're going, why do you keep doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you do that with your hand? Why do you make that face?
Yes.
So what are some of the things that you're looking for when you evaluate yourself?
Oh, it's a combination of things. So I try to evaluate myself first vocally
Okay.
and just, okay, like what little things need to change?
Mm-hmm.
How can I get better in this specific area with my voice? And then typically that's chasing down YouTube video,
Yeah.
like multiple things of like, okay, how do you like get better in
There's
this
so
area?
much out there
'Cause
now.
There's so much out there now, yes.
Right. When I was
That's-
singing in college, obviously there was none of that.
Yeah.
And so I just had to, I don't know, just figure it out, or
Mhm.
or go to a vocal coach, and say, hey, help me with this.
Yeah.
Because I remember I learned in college, Moriah, to stop taking antihistamines around concert time because I had allergies, and they would just I would feel like I had concrete in my throat.
There's so
And it
many
was-
things. No
yeah.
dairy, no sugar,
Yeah.
like the whole list of if you're
So,
before
right.
big performances, especially.
Right.
Like I can't do that
When
every
you
single
need-
week.
when you need the pipes,
When
you
you
got to be
need
ready.
it, though.
Yeah.
But then I also evaluate stage presence. Again,
Mhm.
you said like weird things you do with your hands. Like
Yes.
normally the people closest to you will point those out to you. So
Right.
Dylan will be like, "You're doing something weird," with
Yeah.
your hand when
My
you're up
wife
there.
has pointed out to me, Moriah, that one of my, like when I need I call as a communicator a parachute to just kind of, I can feel I'm losing energy in the room or whatever.
Mhm.
One of my go-tos immediately is to use what I call my country boy redneck voice, because it always gets a cheap laugh. It's just kind of funny. And my wife's like, you overuse that
like your
too much.
reset.
Oh, she just gets me all the time. She's like, stop it. Stop doing that. And, so I'll be talking and I'll be like, just go into the voice, the hee-haw voice. And she gets me on it. So the people that love you the most will
They will.
absolutely tell you.
They will.
Right.
I would say the most torturous thing for me though is evaling spoken moments
Really?
and things. Yes, that is what comes least naturally to me.
Though, I will say that I think that's you think it's your least natural, and I guess you would know better than anyone, but from the outside looking in, I always feel like you connect really well in transitions between songs, bringing the
That's
audience in.
encouraging.
Because some people are just not good at that.
Mhm.
It's awkward. I always feel like you grab the moment really well.
Oh, well, thank
Yeah.
you. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
it's what I'm beating myself up
That's
on
the one. Yeah.
later on.
But
It's
there's
like,
this other
ooh.
thing I wanted to talk to you about. No, I'm just kidding. So evaluation's huge, and because there's a lot of people out there, and I think C.S. Lewis said it well, that if you're Christian, whatever you do it well.
Mhm.
So C.S. Lewis is the one that said, if you're going to be a shoemaker and you're a Christian, make the best shoes anyone's ever had. And so what I hear is kind of your shoemaking is what you do on that stage and leading worship and all that. And you're real serious about, hey, I don't want to stop growing. I want to get better and better at this.
Yeah.
And I think that's true of whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you do.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a Christian, that's the way you're shining light into the
Yeah.
darkness, right?
It is.
You're not only on stage, though. You're also helping us behind the scenes. What's some of the other things that you're doing with your gifts here at Three Circle?
Well, okay, let's see where to begin.
Right? So many hats. So many hats.
So within the worship director role at the Fairhope campus, a lot of what I do is planning. So with Pastor Zach, we
Right.
do a lot of planning together, whether that be songs, even the spoken moments.
You mean
how
you
are
guys
things
don't
going
just
to-
randomly
we
step
don't-
on stage and start just singing stuff?
No. It would be cool, but
Yeah.
So planning weeks out, like we plan weeks in advance. I personally am over the vocal side of our team.
Okay.
So all of the vocalists, Zach is over band along
Okay.
with Dave Denton, our MD.
Right.
And then,
Speaking
which
of
he's
talented
incredible.
guys,
Yeah. And then I'm over our vocalist and our
So
vocal
you're planning
team.
who's singing where, all of that.
Who's, yes. I'm
Are you helping with all the
scheduling
campuses or just?
Just this campus.
I got you.
Mm-hmm. So this campus, but yes, on any given Sunday, where people sing, what parts,
Okay.
all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So as far as how things are executed on
So
Sunday.
when parts, like if I were a vocalist and you were scheduling me, would you say, hey, you're going to be singing, like, are you literally saying you're going to sing tenor this week, or you're singing baritone, or are you?
Yes, and
Okay.
it's a little more complex. We actually have these things called vocal notes
Okay.
that I created it's every song that we do, they're color coded
Wow.
for like this person singing here, this person singing there. And it's actually worked pretty well.
Really? That's pretty
to-
high tech, Moriah.
So,
Did you develop the system?
I didn't develop the idea, and I don't
Okay.
know who it's taken from, but it's out there somewhere.
You're
I'll
putting
give
it
credit
to,
as credit's due.
You're putting it to use though. That's pretty
But
cool.
putting it to use, yes, it's very helpful, I think, with the amount of vocalists we have.
Yeah.
Just for people to be able to prepare during the week and
Right.
know, like, this is what I'm doing.
So they show up prepared, and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that's great.
And we have a great team.
And then you guys come together and rehearse and
We
do a
do.
lot of hard work to get ready.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why? And I think I know the answer, but for the people out there that maybe right now are going, "Oh, I didn't know that much went into it," which is true of all things, right? You make it look easy, but behind the scenes, you know what I mean. Tiger Woods made it look easy to hit a golf ball, but you didn't see the third.
Well, that's the funny question I've gotten before is like, how is worship leading full time? I'm like, well, the worship leading part itself is like 3 hours a week.
Right.
It's not.
Well, we just sit around.
Left.
We just sit around the church all week and wait for everybody to show back up. I used to do some ministry with Louis Giglio when Nan and I were in Atlanta, and we did this thing called Passion on the Hill with them. And I remember one night he invited a bunch of student ministries, and I was doing student ministry at the time, to bring our students, our leadership, to this thing called Passion on the Hill. It was amazing. It was Church of the Apostles is where it was. And everything Louis does is really cool anyway. But I heard him say one night, he was like, people that wonder, what's going on with the church staff, he was like, oh, we just sit around all week, we just sit around, tinker around on the piano till y'all come back next week, just making that joke. Because there is so much to anything that's done well. Anything that's done well. So why would you guys not just step on stage and just start singing? Why do y'all take it so seriously, Moriah, to offer excellence as a part of what we do?
Well, I think it goes back even to what you already said, just that as believers, we're called to do everything with excellence. And for us, that means being prepared. Yeah, if we stepped on stage and just started playing, we've got some great musicians. We'd probably be okay for a little while.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be great for long.
Not for long. I always say that you can wing it for a little bit, but at some point you crash.
Oh, yeah.
Without preparation, without the work.
Just doing it, knowing we're doing it for God's glory, and that truly is what the reason is for. Why wouldn't we do it at least to the best of our ability?
Absolutely, the best we can with what we have in our hands. You're also a songwriter, and I do believe that we did a summer series called Fruit of the Spirit.
Yes,
and we opened the series with a little song.
We did
that you and I, and
Marcel.
Did Zach help write that? So
Zach
the four of
us,
we were in that room.
Yes.
And I came in and I was like, I've got this idea about the vine and the branches, and it just took off. How long? 20 minutes maybe? We wrote the whole song.
That's not always how it works either.
But man,
that one was a good one.
That was cool, and it just came out, and then we knew right when we were going to use it. And I'll tell you, the Sunday I got to sit out in the audience and listen to what did we call the song? Was it called Vine and Branches? No, You Are the Vine.
You Are the Vine, I think is what it was, and Zach sang that one.
Yeah, and they put a little bluesy feel on it. Talk to us, though, because I know what that moment has been like for me over the years whenever I write something or I'm a part of writing something and it comes to life. Yeah. That's a unique little thing, isn't it?
It is.
So you as a songwriter, how does that feel when something that was embryonic comes to life creatively?
Yeah, I mean, it really does feel incredible. It's also, at least for me, I don't know if this is true for everyone, it's a little nerve-wracking. It's like, hopefully everyone resonates with this, and probably in the same way as teaching, coming out, like you want it to be
constantly
the best. Like you're doing it for God, but you're also doing it hoping that something will connect with people.
I hope this resonates.
Yeah, and so it's a combination of both. It's always exciting and it's always a little nerve-wracking.
There's been many times I thought something was going to be funnier than when I said it, and it crashed and burned right in front of me, or an illustration that I thought this is going to work.
Well, and there's always that risk.
There's a risk.
Always.
Creativity demands it, right?
It does.
You'll never write another song if it does. But that one worked. That
That
Vine
one,
and
that one
Branches
did
song,
work,
you could
and
feel
it
it in
felt
the
really
room.
good. Yes.
Yeah. So, and you're a part of writing a lot. What's another song that you've contributed to that people would know around here?
Well, probably I feel like the one that has been a favorite for a long time is Only the Blood.
So
That
you were
is,
one of the contributing writers.
yes.
So I think that's our best song still to this
Probably,
day.
yes, I
It's
think
such
so
an
too.
amazing song that came out of. What part of that song did you bring to the table? Did you kind of have the melody or the chorus?
Ben Kimsel brought a melody, and he
Right.
also had some
And he's an
pieces
incredible
already.
writer.
Yes, which he is awesome.
Yeah.
He brought, I think, a couple of verses, and
Okay.
then it was myself, Zach Adamson, and Angel Thrash that all just finished writing it together. So mostly lyrically,
Yeah.
but also some different melodic things.
And we've got churches across the country starting to use that
Really?
song, from what I
That's-
understand. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I would say probably churches that I've spoken
That
at, and
you've-
I've told, go check out
You
this
gotta
song,
do
and then
this
they let me
song.
know, we're doing this song. So there it is.
Mhm.
So we're so grateful to have you here, a part of this team. In closing today, again, we keep coming back to who we are. You're not just a singer and vocalist and worship leader. You are you're a mom.
Mhm.
What a holy, sacred calling that is. Okay.
Mhm.
And you tell us your children's names and ages.
So I have Everly, and she's 7, and then Olive is 3.
You got these beautiful daughters that are just
Yes,
amazing.
They are.
What do you want them? Because I know how my wife speaks of her mother and how she loves her mother. And what do you want your daughters to get from you being their mom? When they're 35, 40 years old and they have daughters, and she's riding down the road talking to them in the car about her mom, you. What do you want them to say about the kind of mom you were?
Ultimately, I want them to think of me as someone who helped point them back to Christ and helped guide them in their walk, which is interesting at this age. I get lots of questions from our 7-year-old that I don't feel equipped to answer. But also just that I loved them, that I spent time with them, like true time, not time on my phone, not time working. I'm trying to be really good about separating those things when I am specifically with them and spending time with them. And I would love, as an adult, to truly have a friendship with my kids.
Oh, that's good.
But I think that is something that is built. You obviously, there is a fine line. You don't want to be your kid's best friend either.
Sure.
But there's that fine line of them knowing they can come to you with anything in that sort of sense, knowing they can trust you.
Yeah, that's great.
And in that same way that we have God as our Father, I think that's always a great example. I do hope my kids see me in that light as they get older, just as a trusted space, someone that they can come to with anything. I think there's so much of that groundwork that you lay when they're this age and when they're young, because
I agree.
For me, it's if you overreact or freak out about every little thing, they don't feel like they can come talk to you about things.
So true.
So for me, it's a lot about having a lot of patience each and every day, which only God can give.
Yes.
And it's just about, again, taking each moment. Like we say, take each day. Sometimes at home with kids, it's each moment.
Yeah, yes.
And how you actually referenced this book in your teaching a few weeks ago, Paul David Tripp's book.
Game Changer.
It is the
Gospel
Parenting. I read that book on repeat. I never stop reading it.
It helped me so much. Well, there's some books that give you a list of things to do, and then there's some books that change how you think.
Yes.
And that book changed. It was a paradigm shifter for me and how I looked at parenting. Big time.
That parenting's a gift.
It's
and
a gift.
It's not, your kids are not your
That's right.
property or
and to remember that God parents me while I parent my kids. That was a phrase that changed the way I parented. That remember, Chris, while you're parenting your kids, God's parenting you.
Yes.
It just changed. Moriah, you are a gift to our church and all of those who get the chance to sit around your leadership, some underneath your leadership. We're also grateful. And thank you for sharing a little bit of your story today for
Thank you.
so many.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, and it'll be fun to continue to see what God does with you and all of your gifts here at Three Circle. And if you're listening today, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, we hope that today's podcast would encourage you. We say it each week. We want to stir your affection for Jesus, but we're just real people. And like Moriah revealed today, just a real person dealing with the fears and worries and anxieties that you do. And as a mom, she's got little kids that need a ton of her energy and another one on the way. And yet she finds that Jesus is faithful daily. Every day his mercies are new. And so we hope that you hear the realness, the rawness in that, and that you too can find daily grace and daily strength in Christ. And we hope you'll join us again right here in the same place next week. We will continue to go beyond the weekend here at the Three Circle Podcast.